It is time for Answer's Party Line today for your Tuesday. That's August the 27th, 2019. Answer's Party Line is brought to you by Wimmer Opticians of St. Cloud, Atlas Family Chiropractic of Waite Park, CHI Health at Home. We have cloudy skies, our temp, or at least partly cloudy skies. Our temp is at 60. West winds at 13 miles an hour. Humidity at 79%. Should see a high today eventually of only 68. Some scattered thunderstorms or storms a possibility. Otherwise, clouds for the most part. Down to 50 tonight, maybe some clouds and more rain showers early. And then tomorrow, should see lots of sun, about 70 for the high temp, so a little cooler week this week. Again, we are at 60. My name is Brad Melke. Good morning. Answers Party Line brought to you by Wimmer Opticians of St. Cloud, Atlas Family Chiropractic of Waite Park, CHI Health at Home. In studio with us, we have many guests. Well, we have two of them. We've got Dennis Fuchs and we've got Chris Hogge. Chris is the district conservationist of NRCS. And, of course, Dennis, you know him, administrator with the Stearns County Soil and Water Conservation District. Dennis and Chris, good morning.
Good morning, Brad and listeners. It's great to be back here. And sorry for the confusion that I may have created earlier in the month here where they thought we were coming and we weren't coming.
Yeah, your name was written on the calendar, so I assumed you'd be going through the door, but I didn't set up that one, so I wasn't, so whatever happened, it's fine.
Yeah. Well,
all is forgiven.
Thanks for covering, and maybe the listeners got a chance to listen to a few polka tunes. Or
maybe, I don't know. And, of course, we got Chris with us. Chris, last time I spoke with you, which was what, a month ago? A couple of months ago?
A couple of months ago, yep.
So, let's see, 2 weeks plus 8 weeks. You're on your, 12th week or so? Something like that?
About that.
Something like that?
Yeah, we're about couple of months, a little over 2.5 months. So our team's up and running in the Waite Park service, customer service team. So we're starting to get kind of our feet on the ground, looking at what's going on. We're starting to get a grasp on like the CSP program that we have going on. And it is about that time of the year for folks who are participating in the CSP program to pull together their documentation for the enhancements that they've completed in 2019.
So, Chris, the listeners out there that haven't had a chance to listen to you or maybe are new to Chasm and some of the programs we work on, CSP, what does that stand for?
That's the Conservation Stewardship Program, and that is a program that assist farmers with, I always like to call it, where they're kind of experimenting with practices that they would like to implement on their farms. So the Conservation Stewardship Program is a 5-year program that a producer can select specific enhancements to put or to work with on their farming operation. They can do it for cropland, wildlife habitat, or even forest. So they just select some of the enhancements they're interested in, and we work with them to get everything kind of planned out and set up, and they see how that works for 5 years. And then after 5 years, they can either let it go, or they can re-enroll possibly for another 5 years.
Could you give us an example, like if I want to do an enhancement for wildlife, what would that enhancement be?
Oh, some of those, if you're a farmer or a producer and you have control of the ground, you could do native grass planting for pollinator habitat, which would be forbs-based planting, or you could do one for monarch butterfly habitat, which would be something that would have a higher percentage of milkweed. That is kind of the habitat required for monarch butterflies. Those are a couple of the options. Those are probably the more popular ones. I'm not familiar with what you would do in a timber type setup. That would be something that we'd have to do a little bit more research on. I came from Wheaton in Minnesota here, so there's not a lot of trees out in Wheaton. We have a lot of crop ground out there.
Yeah, the giant ragweed would be about the biggest tree.
Yeah, pretty close to. I was always told the telephone poles were the biggest trees. So
when you set up the CSP type of program, is there a minimal amount of acres that is allowed, or I guess the size of the project, the scope of the project is what I'm curious about?
It's usually the full farming operation that the producer has control of. So it usually goes off the producer farm data report that is managed by FSA. Mm-hmm. So it's something that if they have operation, if they own or operate the ground, then it can be put into CSP. So it can be timber, like I said, timber ag associated ground, which is the wildlife habitat, or it could be cropland.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Did you want to talk a little bit about your crazy idea about submitting questions?
okay, since it isn't my okay, I was just kicking around the idea that we could field questions that were submitted to the Soil and Water Conservation District Board or the Soil and Water Conservation District email, and we would answer those questions in the next Chasm Radio spot.
Yes.
So that's kind of the idea. If you submit the questions, we'll review them and we'll look into them. And we'll do some research and figure out the appropriate answers, and then we'll bring them to Chasm. We'll do 1 or 2 or 3 as we see fit.
So I brought this idea up with Ben Rulli. He's our information technology guru in the office. And he goes, oh, yeah, sure. I could do something like that. So if you go to our homepage, and if you Google Stearns County SWCD or Stearns Soil and Water, or if you want the actual address, I can give it to you. But I know you're probably in the middle of doing something while you're listening to Chasm. But if you go to the homepage, there'll be a little link on the top part of the page here that says Submit Question to Chasm. And you click that, and you can put your email and contact information if you're interested. If not, you can just put the question in there. But one thing that we're tossing around is if we do use your question on Chasm, we would give you a Stearns SWCD baseball cap. And that's something that we're tossing around. So if you put your contact information, we can follow up and let you know that we used your question on Chasm. Plus, we have a link on there to let you know where Chasm, when the next time we're going to be on Chasm Radio, which we've scheduled this morning now for September 30th. And just a great opportunity for folks. You know, maybe you're busy right now and can't call in and ask a question, but doggone it, I wish I would have had an opportunity to ask those guys a question. Or you think about it after we're on air. So I just can't believe that Chris came up with this idea. It's such a great idea and I didn't come up with it. It's like, what?
Well, you can only do so much, Dennis. You can only do so much.
All right. Well, yeah. So please visit our homepage, Stearns County SWCD.net, and that'll get you right to the area where you can submit a question.
Quick lawyer question: if they win the hat, they can pick it up at your office next time around?
Correct.
Okay, so get your questions ready for the next time around, which would be on September the 30th here at Chasm Radio. It is 9:30 news right now, Chasm Radio. More Answers Party Line here on Chasm Radio, visiting with our experts of soil and water and stuff. Stearns County Soil and Water Conservation District Administrator Dennis Fuchs, Chris Hogge, District Conservationist, NRCS. Outstanding conservationist, by the way, Dennis.
First, I got to say, you use that word expert fairly loosely, don't you?
Well, I assume you know something by now. So,
yes,
yeah.
I do. I do know I love beer. But okay, let's not talk about that now. It's too early in the morning. Let's talk a little bit about the Stearns County Soil Water Conservation District's Outstanding Conservationists. This is something that our board does every year. They identify a conservation cooperator that has implemented a lot of conservation practices and a person that would be a good spokesperson for conservation in the neighborhood. And this year, we were up in northeast Stearns County, and we had a couple of excellent candidates for this program. And it was a tough choice for the board to make on who is going to be the outstanding conservationist for Stearns County this year. But they ended up choosing Galen Wilczek. And he's up by the northeast portion, just south of Bullis in Stearns County. And on his 370-acre farm, he grows corn, soybean, alfalfa, and raises poultry. Galen has been farming this land since 1992. In the last 4 years, he's installed a grassed waterway, a terrace, several water and sediment control basins, and a concrete stacking slab for his manure. Galen is also working with a crop consultant to better utilize his nutrients. Galen is also certified with the Minnesota Ag Water Quality Certification Program. Galen enjoys wildlife and made the decision to enroll some of his critical resource areas in CRP. CRP is the Conservation Reserve Program. For your listeners out there that may not have been on Chasm very long. He also loves to take the opportunity to hunt with his daughter and observe wildlife. Galen says, if you take care of your land, it'll take care of the rest. Yeah, so he's very excited to be nominated, and he'll be recognized at the state convention in December down at Bloomington at the Doubletree Hotel. And we actually have the Farmer Magazine person, Paula Moore, down there, and we get photos with them and all of the outstanding conservationists throughout the state of Minnesota. So each county has an outstanding conservationist. They're all recognized that second week of December down at the convention, and it's just a great opportunity for folks to hear about some really good things happening. A lot of times you read the newspaper, you only hear about, some big dead zone in Mexico and the Gulf. And, you don't get to hear about a lot of folks out there doing a great job in protecting our resources. And Galen Wilczek is the grand prize winner here in Stearns County. So we're excited to have him and to recognize Galen as part of the Outstanding Conservationist for Stearns County.
Very good. Listener would like to know, what can you tell us about CRP signups?
Oh, that's a good question for Chris.
All right, I guess it's mine. The CRP sign-up for this go-around was completed on Friday, so we don't have any open sign-ups at this moment in time, I do not believe. If you're interested in more information, you can stop into the FSA office to start the application process, or you can talk to Jason at the Soil and Water Conservation District office also. Or you can give us a phone call at, I don't know the number because I haven't been there long enough.
320-251-7800, extension 3. Also, so the CRP sign-up that just closed here last week, that was for the continuous CRP?
Right. That was for continuous, and those practices that were included in there. There could be a general sign-up, but like I said, if you have any really detailed questions, give us a call at the office, and we'll be more than happy to work with you to create a plan and get something ready for the next sign-up opportunities.
The rumor I heard is that Sonny Perdue, the chief, would like to have a sign-up this fiscal year, which would be the new fiscal year starts October 1. We'll see. September's starting here mighty quick, and I'm not sure if that'll happen or not. There's a lot of things up in the air. So we'll hopefully have more information down the road here, like Chris said.
Yep.
All right, let's talk manure.
Okay. Yeah, so I've seen a lot of the small grains have been getting harvested in between the rain showers here, and there's also a lot of manure that's got to get applied before it freezes up. And the University of Minnesota Extension Service put together some information on, how to conserve those nutrients if you're going to be applying them this time of the year, which is a little bit early. Typically, you try to wait until the soil temps get below 50 degrees so that the nutrients aren't in a mobile form where they can leach into our groundwater. But also, we understand that there's a lot of work that needs to get done this time of the year until freeze up, so you got to squeeze things in when you can. But I want to just share with you some of the things that they came up, which I thought was some good ideas, and it might save you some fertilizer dollars down the road. So if you're thinking about applying manure soon on fields where short-season crops like sweet corn, peas, or small grains have come off, consider planting a cover crop to hold the nutrients in place this fall and next spring. There are 4 potential options for doing this, and I'm going to do each one of these options here. So the first option they presented was broadcast the seed, then spread the manure. For solid manure that won't be incorporated, make sure it isn't applied too thickly so the cover crop can push through. Or if you got both solid and liquid manures, incorporation shortly after the manure is spread can help retain nutrients and improve seed to soil contact for the cover crop. Shallow incorporation will keep the seeds closer to the soil surface, leading to better cover crop establishment compared to deep incorporation or if the seeds were not incorporated at all. So that was the first option there, broadcast seed, then spread manure. Now the second option is apply manure, then plant the cover crops. So in this option, try to get the seed planted as soon as possible after the manure application. This will allow for more fall growth and more time to capture nutrients that were applied in the manure. This option may allow for the cover crop to be drilled, which will improve establishment. So that was apply manure, then plant the cover crop. The other option they presented was apply the cover crop with the manure. Oh, that sounds kind of cool. So some researchers and farmers in the upper Midwest have experimented with mixing cover crops into liquid manure slurries and applying it all in one pass. This seems to work with most cover crop species except for red clover. Remember, most cover crop seed doesn't like to be buried very deeply, so choose an application system that includes shallow incorporation or injection. If doing this with tankers, you'll likely want some agitation in the tank to keep the seeds well mixed instead of floating or settling at the bottom. Also, if you're doing this with a dragline system, you'll need to figure out a way to meter the seed into the pit as it is being pumped to get consistent seeding rates out in the field. Some Minnesota-based folks are experimenting with this, and I'm not sure where they are with that research and experimentation, but when I do find it, I will share it with the listeners. So that was apply the cover crop with manure, and the last option they present is plant the cover crop, then inject the manure. Once cover crops are established and have a good root system, they are better able to capture nutrients more quickly. Make sure the manure injection unit has minimal soil surface disturbance to maximize cover crop growth. Recent research in Minnesota found that implements with aggressive tillage reduce fall stand and winter rye cover crops. Although there was some recovery in the spring, implements with less surface disturbance had more fall and spring-winter rye growth. And if you'd like to learn more about this is on the University of Minnesota cover crop website. So if you just Google that, you'll see more information about using cover crops to help better utilize your nutrients and minimize soil loss in our fields here in central Minnesota.
I'd be curious to know the right formulation of mixing the cover crop seed with the liquid manure and what ratio to what is best and so forth.
Yeah, so, the seeding rates is basically like for cereal rye, it's about a bushel and a half of seed to the acre. I would assume you could use a very similar rate. You might want to kick it up a little bit, depending on which one of these options you pursue. But you can use a lot of different cover crop seeds out there. There's broadleaves, there's legumes, and it all depends on your. We could spend a whole day talking about cover crops, right, Chris?
Yeah, pretty much.
And we won't do that today, but someday. I'm not threatening the listeners that we will do that, but we could talk about that. But keep it simple. One of the things we found, even if you just want to put some oat out there, that will survive until it gets about 10, 12 degrees, and then the frost would kill it. And you wouldn't have to worry about any regrowth next spring, and you could plant almost directly into that, maybe a light spring disc or field cultivate, and you'd plant right into that. The other option is to do like winter rye or cereal rye, and that'll sprout this summer, spring, and then spring it'll resprout in the spring. It'll also germinate here in the fall, and then you'll see it nice and green in March, April already, and then you would kill that crop terminate it in the spring before you plant. And we can talk more about that next spring about if you do move into that strategy. But yeah, putting cover crops out there is a great way also to use some of the soil moisture. If you got a field that's wet and you can't get out there to get it tile drained, or tile draining isn't allowed because of the wetland provisions in the USDA Food Security Protection Act of 1985 as amended.
Wow. You really just went there. On a lighter note, if you're interested in cover crops and you're looking for ideas, one thing I will tell you is if you're new to it, keep it small and manageable, something that you can be successful with and you can experiment with. Try different crops, different cover crop types, line them up one next to another. Just do some experimenting to see what works best in your farming operation, because sometimes what other people are successful with won't work with you, your soils, your management style, your slopes, the water availability or non-available. So it's something that you really want to do more of a site-specific experimentation. But manure isn't the only way that you can use cover crops. I know that Dennis said the wheat's being harvested. If you're not doing manure on your small grains, maybe just throwing a cover crop out there, throwing a mix out there after it gets harvested. I would recommend doing some sort of a 2 or 3 species or more mix on those sites. We also have silage is right around the corner. Folks are going to start pulling silage out of the field, and that's a good opportunity to put some cover crops out there to protect the exposed soil and increase your organic matter. And those are really, we've seen a lot of success for those types of setups than, coming in after corn and bean. It gives you a lot more time for the crop to germinate and grow, and I think you would be good in those situations. The other thing I've noticed is we've got some folks that are doing some tillage on preventative plant acres. If you're still doing tillage and you have an opportunity, maybe experiment with cover crops for those preventative plant acres. If you can get into them, it might be a good time to try doing a little experimenting on small acres on those. So if you have any questions, you can always give us a holler at the office, and we can follow up with you and see if we can help you get a mix that'll work in your situation.
Yeah, and we also have access to some farmers that have successfully implemented cover crops, and we can share their contact information with you. And, if you'd like to visit with some actual farmers that are making this happen, we do have those folks available too. So it's a great opportunity, like Chris said, especially in these small grain fields and corn silage fields that'll be coming off here shortly, to try some cover crops. And I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. And if you do haul manure, there's options that, like I stated earlier, that you can also still use cover crops with getting manure applied on your fields. Can I talk about something else?
You can, Dennis.
All this manure, I'm just full of it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a grant that we received from the Environmental and Natural Resources Trust Fund. These are the dollars from the Minnesota Lottery. A portion of those goes back to Minnesota to do unique projects. And we were fortunate enough to receive almost $500,000 to explore a new crop. It's called Kernza. And the University of Minnesota just recently released their new variety. They've developed their own Kernza hybrid or variety, and it's called Minnesota Clearwater. And I think it's just an awesome name because Kernza has a very deep rooting system. It can get deeper than 10 feet into the soil. And it is so good at sequestering nutrients, including nitrates, and it'll take that and utilize that for the biomass and seed production growing above ground. And we're going to be working with a couple of farmers in the Cold Spring wellhead protection area. The city of Cold Spring has been experiencing slight increases in nitrate over time. And they really are working with landowners, farmers, people in the city to help manage lawn fertilizer and also manure and nutrients applied within the wellhead protection area. And we're very excited to have this crop experimented in that area. And we actually worked with the University of Minnesota last year on a seed production field of Kernza. And that was the Minnesota Clearwater that they were developing. That was harvested last week, and that seed will be used to plant a couple of the demonstration sites associated with the grant that we received through the Environmental and Natural Resources Trust Fund. And those acres are all within the drinking water supply management area of the city of Cold Spring. And then we're also working with the city of St. Cloud near their wastewater treatment plant, and part of the source water protection for the city of St. Paul and Minneapolis. We're going to be having another 10-acre Kernza demonstration site working with Pat Shea and his colleagues here at the city of St. Cloud. And then we also got an experiment at the Rosholt Experiment Farm near Westport, and we're going to be looking at alfalfa Kernza, and also native prairie to see which one does the best job of cleansing the soil and removing nutrients. Did you have a question?
No, but I had to write down Kernza so I remembered it.
Oh.
How do you spell that?
It's Kernza.
I spelled it wrong. All right.
Kernza.
Kernza.
It's actually intermediate wheatgrass. It's a perennial. So that's the other thing that's really unique about this crop is it's perennial. So once you plant it, it sticks around for a few years until it gets so root bound where you have to disturb it and then bring in a different crop again. So this is a very unique crop. They're working on some value-added products, and as part of our grant project, we're also working with AURI. That's the Ag Utilization Research Institute, and they're going to be looking at some value-added components for Kernza. We are also working with 3rd Street Brewery and Beaver Island Brewery currently to explore some brews made with Kernza.
Kernza Ale.
Kernza Ale, actually,
Something.
they've have created some beer already, and they call it long rooted ale because it's got such.
Yeah.
Here in Stearns County, I was thinking of deep roots because we have so much interconnectedness with our generations and folks being related several different times.
Yeah.
And that we have these deep roots, but there's already a deep-rooted ale, so that name's taken. Doggone it, I thought I had a good one there. But, yeah, so we're excited. We actually did try some beer that Beaver Island had just a very small quantity of Kernza seed and made some Saison. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's a lighter style of ale. And, oh, my gosh, it was so tasty. So they are very excited to get a little larger batch, and then they're looking for a larger vessel where they could get, say, 200 pounds of Kernza and boil it over an extended period of time to release the sugars, and then
ferment.
Yeah, I don't know if it's
not necessarily ferment.
No, it was. They talked about just heating it to a certain temp and then releasing more of the sugars from the Kernza.
Oh, okay.
So they're looking for a larger vat that they can do this with, and they're. So if any of you listeners out there have access to a larger vat stainless steel, I was thinking like a smaller bulk tank from a smaller dairy farm that's still sitting out there would probably work good for that. But they are really excited to try this and would like to do a limited release sometime down the road here too with Kernza.
So the seed, is it readily available or is it just
no?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's so last year. We worked with one of our local farmers. We had about 20 acres in seed production, and you got about 500 pounds to the acre, and you're looking at about 10 pounds of seed to the acre. And you plant that now, late August, and then you harvest it mid-late August next year, and then it continues to grow. The straw actually it's more nutritious in this like oat or wheat straw, and we're going to be working with AURI to identify the nutrient quality of that for livestock and also as bedding. And it's really exciting. I mean, we're not looking at taking every corn, soybean acre out of production and putting all Kernza. And we're only looking at getting this Kernza established in some of these very sensitive areas on the landscape, like our wellhead protection areas, where having a perennial does a much better job of sucking up nutrients versus corn or soybeans.
Can you quickly tell us about your training in September?
Oh, yeah. We have a crop advisor update, and this is actually open to anybody that wants to come. But if you would like more information, it'll be Wednesday, September 11th at the Paynesville Legion. Cost is $45 for the day. You need to let me know by Friday, September 6th, if you'd like to go. And that includes meal and materials. And we have Jeff Strock, Dan Kaiser, both from the University of Minnesota, talking about conservation, drainage management, and fertility. We got Kenny Blumenfeld talking about weather. We got Alan Bladeblock from Nutrien talking about maximizing 4 R's of nitrogen fertilizer management. We got Bruce Potter with the University of Minnesota talking pest management. And we end the day with Jeff Gonzalez. He's going to talk about a career's worth of observations from a weed scientist. So he's going to be retiring here shortly, and he's had a whole career at the University of Minnesota, and we'll tie that up. But if you're interested, call me at the office or contact or stop in 320-251-7800 extension 3.
Submit your question to the SWCD NRCS website by the next show, which would be September the 30th.
Yes.
Email it to your website, whatever that is.
Just go to the website,
email.
just Google Stearns Soil and Water, and it'll pop up.
And you could maybe win a cap or a mug or something.
Yeah,
neat.
we're working on the details on that. So just submit a question, and we'll see. Maybe we'll just get overwhelmed with questions.
Or none at all.
Yeah.
Then I get to keep the hat.
Yeah, then Brad gets to keep the hat.
All right. Dennis Fuchs and Chris Hogge, thanks for your time today. Do appreciate it.
Thank you, Brad.
It's a minute past 10 o'clock. We've got some news coming up next.